So you're welcome to this video. Question 1 says figure 1 is an illustration of the longitudinal section of the mammalian heart. So this is the mammalian heart. We are asked to study it carefully and then answer the questions that follow. So with I, we are asked to state one function of the part labeled I. We have them here. So Ix as well, and then X. Now, I is the iota. II, which is the side, is the pulmonary vein. Ix is the vena cava. Then X, which is this side, is the pulmonary artery. Now the second question says, so we are asked to explain briefly why the left lower part of the heart has a thicker muscle. So this side, why does it have a thicker muscle? It has a thicker muscle because it pumps blood to all parts of the body. So since it pumps blood to all parts of the body, it has to be more muscular in order to be able to perform its function. So that is it. The next one says, state 2 ways by which flow of blood from the mammalian heart, as shown in figure 1a, can be kept at acceptable levels. So the first thing to do is to engage in regular exercises. Also, you have to take in healthy diets. So the next one, Ivan. So we are asked to name two parts of the heart where oxygenated blood can be found. After the blood has escaped the heart through the pulmonary artery, it has to get back into the heart again to be pumped to all parts of the body. And the oxygenated blood fills this part of the heart. So that is the part of the heart that it fills. So when it fills this part of the heart, it now travels out through the aorta to all parts of the body. So the upper part of the left side is called the left auricle, and the lower part is called the left ventricle. So we move on to the next question. B, P, Q, and then R will be planted on a seed bed. So for the first one, which is the maize, you need to make the correct planting distances. Afterwards, you make holes with a cutlass or a stick, just not too deep. Then you plant 2 or 3 seeds per hole and then cover the soil. So that is how you go about with the maize seed. Now to the tomato seedling. You are supposed to remove the plant seedling from a nursery gently. Then place the seedling in a prepared hole, or if you would have to dig the hole. Then firm the soil around the seedling with your hands and then water immediately. Now with the cassava cuttings, first you have to dig a hole and then loosen the soil. Then you turn the cuttings with the node facing upwards because that is where the buds will sprout from. Then you have to cut into the hole. Just make a trift, 2 trifts. Then firm the soil around the cutting. So we are asked to state 4 conditions under which R can be cultivated, which is the cassava, to produce high yield. So what can we do for cassava to produce high yield? A stem that is free from diseases. We have to use a stem that is free from diseases. Also, we have to ensure proper spacing. We also have to regularly test the soil for its fertility and also regularly monitor for pests and diseases. So to the next one, which is C, which is electrical energy. Electrical energy is always a question you should expect in any WAEC exam. I've always been mentioning it in my videos. So the first question says state one function for each. So I to Ivan. So I, which is the cell. At first, the normal way why I go ask this question is label I, just label them. But right now, the questions are very different. You are not even asked to label them. You are just being asked the function. So if you don't know the name, you can't give the function. So I converts chemical energy to electrical energy. Then II, it opens or closes the circuit. III, which is a capacitor, stores electric charges. And then IV, which is a resistor, it opposes the flow of current. Now the next question says that if the voltmeter reads 2.4 volts and the ammeter reads 0.8 ampere, we are supposed to calculate the value of the part labeled IV. So we are supposed to find the resistance. So, initially, they'll just go straight to the point. Find the resistance. Right now, they want you to do more thinking. So let's work it out. Potential difference equals current times resistance. And right now, we are looking for resistance. So we divide both sides by current. So R equals V over I. So our resistance equals the potential difference, which is 2.4 volts. 2.4 over 0.8, which is the 0.8 ampere, which is the current. So when you do your division very well, you're going to get 3 ohms. So that's the answer for the II.
If you are in the junior high school and then you are preparing for either your mock or the next BECE, kindly check the link description or the comment section to join my WhatsApp channel for more updates on topics to expect in your mock and your BECE.
The next question says, state one way of conserving the value of the part labeled I. So one way of conserving the chemical energy that is converted to electrical energy. Okay, so you see how the questions are very unique. So in order to be able to conserve the chemical energy which is converted to electrical energy, only power devices that are necessary for a particular task. So if a particular electrical component is not needed, it's not supposed to be in the electrical circuit, and keep the switch open if not in use. Then the last question says, state 2 observations that will be made when the circuit is closed. So when the circuit is closed, that is the II, what's going to happen? The ammeter reading will measure the total current, and also the voltmeter will measure the voltage across the resistor and the capacitor. So the ammeter will measure the total current in the circuit, and then the voltmeter will measure the voltage across the resistor and the capacitor. To this setup. So this setup here, we are told figure 1D is an experiment performed to separate components of a mixture. Study it carefully and then answer the questions that follow. So we are told to describe briefly the process of this experiment, and this setup represents separation of mixtures using the separating funnel. So realize that all the questions require you to do an extra thinking before you can answer. The questions are not just straightforward. You think before you can answer. Not like they are telling you to think, but you just realize that if you don't, for example, if you don't know the name of this process, you can't even describe it. So you should be able to name. It's called name before you answer. Something like that. So with the process or with the steps, first of all, you're supposed to fill this separating funnel to about 2/3. Yes, 2/3 of the mixture, and then shake gently and then allow it to settle. So don't fill it to the brim, just 2/3. As you can see, there's enough space at the top here. Then you drain the lower layer by opening the tap gently. As you open the tap gently, you make sure as the water, which you can see makes one layer, and then the liquid at the eye also makes another layer, you make sure you close the tap immediately all the water drains out, so you don't contaminate the components that you separated. Then the II says, state one function of each of the parts II and IV. So II, which is the tap, it allows for controlled drainage of the liquid of the liquids that are being separated. And then IV also, it provides a stable base for holding the separation funnel. Then the III says, state two precautions that should be taken to obtain reliable results when performing this experiment. So when performing this experiment, you are supposed to ensure proper sealing before shaking of the mixture. So the separating funnel is supposed to be sealed properly. And then secondly, when the separation is taking place, you open the tap gently. Don't open it fully and then just be observing. No, just open it slowly so you have whatever you want to separate drained out. So we move on to section B, in the written aspect. We are done with the practical. So question 2A. We are given a flashlight, a tennis ball, and a screen. Draw a diagram to show how shadow can be formed. So the diagram you are seeing on your screen right now is, showing you exactly what you are supposed to draw. Now, at first, I could just ask you to draw a diagram to show formation of shadow. But right now, the dynamics have changed, as I mentioned. Where the opaque object is, you are supposed to label it as a tennis ball. A tennis ball. So the questions are now more practical and you should be able to relate with it. So you're not just learning something that is abstract. So if you're fond of always memorizing without understanding, analyzing and evaluating whatever information you're receiving, you're in trouble if you want to write WAEC exam and pass. Because this is how it's going to be. And they are going to continue on this trend. Okay. So for the second question, a student seeking to determine the volume of an irregular body of mass 4 kg used a graduated cylinder in an experiment. So we are told that figure 2 illustrates two key stages of the experiment, where A indicates a setup before the irregular object was immersed and B indicates the setup after the irregular body was immersed. Simply means that, this is a measuring cylinder filled with water and this is also a measuring cylinder filled with water. When you check the volumes, realize that they are not the same because for this setup, the irregular object, which is looking like a stone or any other thing that has an irregular shape, we were trying to find the volume and there is no known instrument to measure the volume of an irregular object, not even a formula. So you need to immerse this irregular object into water and the volume that is displaced is the volume of the irregular object. So we are asked to determine the density of the irregular object, and we know density equals mass over volume. From the question, I told that the mass is 4 kg over. Then let's look at the volume. So the initial volume is 50 cm cube, and then the final volume is 75 cm cube. Now, the difference in the volumes will give you the volume of the irregular object. So the difference between 75 and 50 is 25 cm cube. Now, so you put your 25 here. But there's a problem. In density, the unit for density is either kilogram per meter cube or gram per centimeter cube. So the easiest thing to do now is to convert the 4 kg into grams and then work it out. Since we want, the easiest and fastest way, we are going to go by the simplest approach. So we'll convert 4 kg to grams. 4,000 grams over 25 cm cube. So 4,000 divided by 25. So answer is 160 grams per cm cube. State 2 precautions that must be taken to obtain reliable results. First thing to do in order to get reliable results is it has to do with the measuring of the volume of the irregular object. So first, when lowering the stone, you have to submerge it gently, and also you have to dislodge any bubble that attaches to the stone. So you can dislodge it by just hitting it gently with a stick, just to dislodge the bubbles, because once the bubbles go down, it will tend to give you a fake volume. Now the second one is when you're reading the volume on the graduated cylinder, read from the meniscus at the eye level so you avoid parallax error. So the next question, the B, we are asked to state 3 precautions to prevent accidents during the use of liquefied petroleum gas in the home. So when using the liquefied petroleum gas, you're supposed to ensure proper ventilation in the kitchen so that when there is a leakage, the gas can disperse evenly and then not be concentrated at a point to be able to catch fire. The second point is turn off gas valve when not in use. So just check your gas and then do what's necessary, what's most important. Then the next question, explain briefly the scientific principle underlying each of the following waste management practices. So composting. Composting involves turning organic waste into nutrient-rich compost in the presence of oxygen and then microorganisms. Then recycling. Recycling is about changing waste into new products. Then incineration. Incineration is burning waste under high temperature. Then the next one, the digestive system of 2 domestic animals, one that is a goat and the other that is a rabbit. State 3 features that will differentiate the 2 digestive systems. Initially, why could just go like state 2 differences between monogastric and polygastric animals. But here we are using the example, so that's why I said that you always have to think first before you be able to answer. Think about the question you are asked, otherwise you might end up saying the wrong thing, so that you know the specific thing they want. We are looking at a goat here, which is a ruminant, and we are looking at a rabbit here, which is a monogastric. So first, a goat has a 4-chambered stomach, so the rabbit has 1-chambered stomach, or just one true stomach. Then the next one, the goat has a longer digestive tract, so as to be able to digest the complex food they take in, but the rabbit has a shorter digestive tract. Yes. Then the next one, question 3, is that you are giving cowpea, cassava, cabbage, and then maize to cultivate a piece of land. You are told to draw a 4-year crop rotational program using the given crops. Then you give 2 reasons for the sequence. So this is how the crop rotation program is going to look like. Now let's look at the next question. It's closely related, so we'll come back to this diagram. So we are asked to state 2 reasons why the sequence is given as I've done. Why did I make the sequence that way? Why did I order the crops that way? So why does cowpea follow maize, then cassava follows, then cabbage follows? Now, in a crop rotation program, deep-rooted crops should follow shallow-rooted crops. So the maize is shallow-rooted, cowpea is deep-rooted, cassava is shallow-rooted, cabbage is deep-rooted. So it follows that way. And once you get your first row right, all you have to do is just to arrange them. You always have to allow them to be in the diagonal manner. So maize follows that trend, cowpea follows that trend, cassava follows that trend, cabbage also follows that trend, and you always get it right. Once you have your first arrangement right and then you do the diagonal, you always get it right. The reason for the sequence is also so that pest and disease buildup can be controlled. Let's say if a particular disease that affects, let's say maize, has already affected the maize, it cannot affect the cowpea, and the disease that affects cowpea cannot affect the cassava, and the disease that affected cabbage. Student is suspected of having contracted COVID-19. Give 2 symptoms that the student may exhibit to confirm this suspicion. So symptoms of COVID-19. So we have 1, fever, cough, and then difficulty in breathing. Then we ask to suggest 2 ways to prevent the spread in the school. So regular hand washing, always ensure that there is proper ventilation in the classroom. Now the III says, give 2 reasons why COVID-19 was declared as a pandemic. Okay, was declared as a pandemic because it spread across multiple countries, and also it affected large number of people, as they said. Yes, affected large number of people. Now the C, it has to do with some calculation. The mass of a vehicle is 1000 kilograms and travels at 100 meters per second. If the vehicle accelerates to 150 meters per second in 10 seconds, calculate its acceleration. Now, the formula for acceleration is velocity over time. By looking at this question, you have 2 velocities. Now, the way to go about it is the final velocity minus the initial velocity. The symbol for final velocity is v. Some people might write v1, v2. Okay, I would want to use the v. Final velocity minus initial velocity over time, which is the t. So final velocity is 150 minus initial velocity 100 over time. The time is 10 seconds. So when you do your calculation right, 150 minus 100 is 50 over 10. So we are going to end up with 5 meters per second squared. That's the unit for acceleration. Always ensure you have your unit right. Then the next one, we are asked to find the force that acts on the vehicle. Force equals mass times acceleration. So you have to use the acceleration that you got in I to answer what you have, the question in II. So if you got the acceleration wrong, it means you don't get any mark for this question. So the mass of the vehicle is 1000. So 1000 multiplied by the 5 meter per second squared we had. So you're going to end up with 5000 Newton. Newton is the unit for force. Then you're asked to find the final momentum when the vehicle comes to a stop. Now the formula for momentum, if you don't know, is mass times velocity. So we are asked to find the final momentum when the vehicle comes to a stop. Now remember, I mentioned initially that 100 meter per second is the initial velocity, 1 meter per second is the final velocity. Now the question is not asking for final momentum, but it's saying when the vehicle comes to a stop. When the vehicle comes to a stop, it means that velocity is 0. So you are not going to use the 150 meters per second. Take notes. When a vehicle is not moving, the velocity is 0. So your mass is going to be 1000 kilogram multiplied by 0. So momentum will be 0. And the unit for momentum is kilogram per meter per second. Yes. So momentum is 0. Now to question 4. So a student who went to bed immediately after eating complained of stomach upset. The next morning, the doctor prescribed liver salt whose major composition is sodium hydrogen dioxocarbonate 4, NaHCO3. It says use a balance equation to explain how the liver salt would relieve the student from this discomfort. At first, they'll just, give you the 2 reactants and then just tell you to balance the equation. So this question is actually asking for balancing, writing a chemical equation and balancing it. Very amazing. So you realize that NaHCO3 you were given. So the question is, what is the other reactant? Now in the stomach, you have an acid called HCl. So you are going to write a balanced equation involving hydrogen chloride and sodium hydrogen tribocarbonate 4. So I just need a clear space to be able to write this for you. That is why I'm coming back to this. So NaHCO3 plus HCl. So our arrow here. So this NaHCO3 is what is in the liver salt, and this is what is in your stomach. So the doctor had to get something to neutralize the acid. So in balancing equation, this Na, which is the sodium, will react to the chlorine because sodium is positively charged, chlorine is negatively charged. So NaCl. And NaHCO3 is actually a base because if you would have salt formed after a reaction, salt and water, it means that the reaction is actually neutralization reaction involving an acid and a base. So NaCl plus, you have H here, you have another H here, you have CO3 here. You're going to have water plus carbon dioxide, CO2. So this is a balanced equation. So this is what that question was expecting from the students. So we have another unique question here, question 4b. So you are told that figure 4 is an illustration of a body of mass 20 kilogram. So that is it, 20 kilogram placed on a wall of height 10 meters. Calculate the energy of the body. Another amazing question. So you don't have a lot of information. Now, thinking through this, work is synonymous to energy. So the formula for work is force times distance. Now, what do you have? You only have the distance from the lower part here to the top here. So you have your distance, you are sure. Now with your force, you don't have it, but you know that force equals mass times acceleration times. So when we bring the work in, so it will multiply by distance. Now, there's another way you can go about this. Now, this body here is not moving, so we say it has potential energy. So potential energy is also equal to mass times acceleration due to gravity times height. So you can either go with this or that. So let's just go with this. So the mass of the body is 20 multiplied by acceleration due to gravity. Over here we'll pick 10. Since you are not given, you can choose whatever you want and then work with it. So times the height is what? 10. So multiplying everything, you're going to have 2000 joule. So in the next question, we are asked to define the term light emitting diode. So what is a light emitting diode? So a light emitting diode is simply a semiconductor that emits light when electric current passes through it. Yes, and then we are asked to give two devices that use LED in their operation. So one is the light emitting diode bulb, and also LED displays that are used for advertisement and streaming of videos and so on. Okay, so the next one, we are told the student was tasked to prepare a raised nursery bed for nursing tomato seeds. Suggest two simple tools that could be used in the nursery bed preparation. So in preparation of a nursery bed, one of the things you will need, a lot of them, one of them is garden fork, and you also need hand trowel. The next question says state one function of the tools that have been mentioned. So a garden fork is used for breaking up compacted soil, and then the hand trowel can be used for digging or transferring soil, and also planting as well. Question 4e. We are asked to state 3 observable features of the animal cell. Now, this question is very basic. It's just asking you to state the organelles of the animal cell, or some organelles you find in an animal cell. Definitely, you can only observe a cell when you look under a microscope. So 3 of them, you will definitely see your nucleus, your mitochondrion, and then the cell membrane. And you have to state 2 functions of the nerve cell. The nerve cell helps in the transmission of electric signals and also the processing of information. Yes. Then question 5, you have electrical energy again. And even this year, 2024, in the WASI as well, there was electrical energy. So take note and master it very well. So we are told to, we have this year, and then we are told to calculate the effective resistance. So these are the 2 resistors. Now to calculate the total resistance, it is 1 over RT equals 1 over 5 plus 1 over 4. So the individual resistances will be below. So when you do your calculation very well, 1 over 5 plus 1 over 4, you're going to have 1 over. Sorry about that, you're going to have 9 over 20. When you make RT the subject, it's going to be 20 over 9. Okay, so 20 over 9 is going to give you 2.22 ohms. Yes. The next question is to find the current flowing. V equals IR. Now, I is the current. So if I is the current over R, R cancels R. So I is going to be 6, which is the potential difference, over R, which is what, 2.22. We're going to get V equals 2.703. And next one, we have to differentiate between organic and inorganic fertilizer. So with organic fertilizer, use natural sources, and inorganic, use synthetically manufactured sources which are manufactured in a laboratory. Then the next question is, outline briefly the steps involved in preparing raised beds.
So the first thing you do on the land is
for
clear
a
the
raised bed,
vegetation,
to prepare a raised bed, first you need to
weeds
choose a location.
that are around.
Then you gather all the
and loosen
materials,
up the
the
topsoil.
compost and
You
the
dig a
soil,
path
and everything you will need to
bed
construct
area
the raised
so
bed,
that
the wooding,
water can flow
the
through.
wood, and so on.
And then break up large lumps of soil, remove all roots and then stones. Now it's time to shape the bed and then firm the edges. Or you can also choose to build a frame around the raised bed. Then you now level it using a rake. Then you water the bed. Now your bed is ready for planting.
Then the next question says, use the function of the red blood cells. Red blood cells helps in the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood vessels. White blood cell function fights against pathogens or diseases. And the blood plasma helps in the transport of food nutrients, simple food nutrients, glucose, amino acid, fatty acid, and cholesterol. Then the next question says, explain briefly the impact of the following organisms on humans. So housefly transmits diseases. It can also contaminate food and then cause allergic reactions as well. The grasshopper is a pest in agriculture. That is, they affect plants, and in large numbers they can really cause so much havoc. They can cause a lot of havoc. And then another impact, positive impact, is they serve as food for humans, and also can be used as food in agriculture as well for poultry. And the last and final question, describe briefly formation of ammonia molecule. after an interaction between hydrogen and nitrogen. So this question also didn't take the conventional way of, conventional way why I ask questions. Now you have hydrogen here, you have nitrogen here. Hydrogen is a non-metal. Nitrogen is also a non-metal, so they are both gases. Now, interaction between these, that kind of interaction is covalent. So it's a covalent bond you are going to have. Now, what is a covalent bond? Covalent bond is formed when there is sharing of what? Electrons. How is the bond going to be formed? There should be sharing. Sharing actually is, pairing together. So in order to see how this interaction will be, so I'm drawing for this nitrogen first. Nitrogen has 7 electrons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then the hydrogen comes in. 1, 2, 3. How did I come about this, or how did I get this? Now, in the writing of the compound that is formed, nitrogen here, hydrogen here, the valency for nitrogen is 3. The valency for hydrogen is 1. When you do the exchange, you're going to have NH3. So that's how come I drew 3 atoms of hydrogen. 1, 2, 3. So this whole thing you are seeing here is the the structure for ammonia. Yes, and I mentioned that it's a covalent bond. It's a covalent bond that gives you this diagram you are seeing. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again in another video.